My husband, John, who had a liver transplant, was discharged from the hospital before I was and cheerfully said this to me. You know, I married you because I thought you were someone who would do everything on her own. John started the conversation like this and clearly stated, I can't handle caregiving, so let's get a divorce. I wonder, how can this man, who once abandoned me, have the audacity to leave such a tearful message on the answering machine? Is he stupid or what? You're going to ask the person you pushed away to pay alimony? What is he even thinking? I couldn't help but laugh out loud. You can use my name. No, please do use it, that would be better. Could you please write everything you can? My name is Sarah Thompson. What I'm about to tell you happened 3 years ago when I was 37. Back then, my name was Sarah Johnson. I was married to my husband, John, who was my senior at the publishing company where I worked. In addition to my main job, I spent my days writing comics as a hobby and a side job. The stuff I wrote wasn't incredibly amazing, but it wasn't bad enough to get cancelled. I leisurely wrote one heartwarming 4-panel comic a month by myself. I originally joined the publishing company because I wanted to work in a field related to what I loved. However, being a creator and working in editing or sales were different things. I gradually became tired of my job. That was when John, a senior from a different department whom I was dating, proposed to me. What I wanted from him was not just to be a wife, but also to manage the house. I can totally support you on my own, he said. And indeed, he could. John, who wrote articles on politics both domestically and internationally, gradually started writing about Japan as well. Eventually, he went freelance. His sharp insights during late-night political debates and his frank manner of speaking became popular on social media, and he started getting invited to various TV shows. He also launched his own political commentary YouTube channel and gained a steady fan base. I watched his growing reputation from the sidelines while I took care of the housework. I drew my comics on a tablet, mostly alone. After getting married, even my parents and in-laws who used to ask about children eventually stopped bringing it up. In fact, during family gatherings, my in-laws would apologize to me, saying they felt sorry that their son was putting everything on my shoulders. We didn't have children. We just couldn't. It would be a lie to say I wasn't sad about it. When I first got married, I wanted to have children with him and build a bright, happy family. However, his lifestyle was just too different from mine. Coming from a fairly wealthy family, John was a hard worker and a partygoer. To him, I was the perfect wife who kept the house and didn't talk back. I knew what I was getting into when I married him. Running away from my previous situation played a part in my decision to get married, but can you really call it a marriage when, despite not being on a work assignment or separated, he only comes home once or twice a week? While I wrote my cheerful comics, I occasionally found my own creations unbearable. However, something seemed off about John when he came back home one day. He looked terribly fatigued right from the moment he woke up, and he had no appetite. I've been busy lately, and I've been out drinking with the crew and guests from the video shoots. I've been thinking about this for a while, but don't you think you've been drinking more than before? I can't help it, it's socializing. But building relationships is the most important part of my job right now. When he put it that way, I couldn't say anything back, especially since I used to be in that industry. And the part that I disliked about my previous job was precisely this. But as a wife, I couldn't just stand by and watch him increase his drinking. Every time I saw John, I reminded him to be careful about it. Then, each time, he would retort, "What do you know about my job?" I was caught in a cycle of not being able to say anything in response. And after a few years of these daily exchanges, something finally went wrong with John's health. That happened just 3 years ago. He genuinely fell ill, collapsed at work, and was taken directly to the hospital, where the doctor told him the following words. "It's cirrhosis." What? John immediately reacted. Meanwhile, I, being called as a family member, was strangely calm. I felt a mix of resignation and a kind of I knew it feeling. According to the questionnaire, you've been drinking quite a lot. It seems like you've had alcoholic liver disease for a while now. Why didn't you come to the hospital sooner? I've been busy with work. But at this rate, the doctor said with a sigh. Mr. Thompson, you don't have much time left. We, being a family of wordsmiths, immediately understood what that meant. Doctor, what should I do then? I still have so much work left to do. Doctor, this man is... Oh, I've seen you often on TV. You seem to be a very busy person. That's right, so I want to get better as soon as possible. There's the option to be hospitalized and take time to recover, but I don't have time for that. My work is... But with your current condition, you need surgery. Surgery? Liver transplant. You should have come to the hospital sooner, the doctor said with a sigh. And then, we were told that there are two options. Either receive a liver from a deceased donor, or get a living donor liver transplant from a close match. Once he was moved to a private room for his hospital stay, John took my hand, looked me straight in the eyes, and said, "Please, give me part of your liver." I was taken aback. I had anticipated that he might ask this of me. Waiting for a liver from a deceased donor would take too long for him. I hesitated for a bit, but then said, "If I'm a match." "Oh, thank God. Thank you. You really are the best wife," he said, hugging me. I couldn't remember the last time he had done that. That's how much we had lost touch with each other. Maybe I still had a sliver of hope that this would make him turn his attention back to me. The tests showed that my liver was fit for transplant. Hearing the news, my in-laws blamed John for his unhealthy lifestyle and shed tears of gratitude for my offer. "I'm really sorry, Sarah. It's all because of this guy's unhealthy lifestyle that we've caused you trouble." No, if this had happened when I wanted kids, I might have said no. But now, I guess it was meant to be. John, who was listening from behind, was pouting and texting someone on his phone. I was admitted to the same hospital room for tests and surgery, and fortunately, the surgery was successful. John's prognosis was good. On the other hand, mine was not. In living donor transplants, there's a small risk of complications for the donor. I didn't think it would happen to me before the surgery, but I was too optimistic. I ended up being one of the unfortunate few. John was discharged from the hospital before me and returned to work right away. He even used his condition and the transplant as material for his job. I spent my days in bed watching his videos, and there was one thing that puzzled me. John, with a big smile on his face, said he was grateful to the liver donor. However, he never once mentioned that the transplant was a living donation from his wife. What's up with that guy? Exactly, he should have mentioned Sarah in a situation like this. My in-laws understood as they watched the video together. It's okay, I couldn't do much even when I lived with him, and I couldn't have kids. It's not about that. My mother-in-law was especially angry on my behalf. Anyway, has he even visited you in the hospital since he was discharged? He hasn't, right? My in-laws were grateful, but having them get angry on my behalf every single time was exhausting. Besides, he's paying for the hospital bills. It was a long hospital stay, and my mother came from far away to be with me, which made me feel guilty. That's true, but you are a married couple, so he should be doing that. Watching my mother and in-laws argue for my sake was really hard, but it wasn't something I could simply dismiss. While enduring my poor condition, all I could do was distract myself with my tablet every day. I never thought I'd be so grateful to be someone who usually draws on a tablet alone. I even shared about my hospitalization on my social media account as a manga artist. Words from unknown fans made me incredibly happy. Nevertheless, my recovery was slow, and I was told I needed a second transplant. On a certain day, waiting for that surgery, a visitor came while I was constantly feeling weak all over my body. At that moment, my mother was out, and I was alone. "Hey, long time no see." "You?" "Yeah, I'm feeling better than before thanks to your liver." "Really? So, you don't drink alcohol now?" "Yeah, openly saying that. No one even invites me for drinks." "That's good." I was furious inside, listening to John speaking cheerfully. Whose fault did he think this was? But at that time, I didn't have the energy to express my anger. So, why do you think I came here today? What? I married you because I wanted someone to take care of the house properly. I inadvertently sat up. You can't do that right now, can you? What are you talking about? I mean, I married you because you were someone who could do everything on her own. It even helped me escape from my parents' pressure to get married. And it was a good thing we didn't have kids. I wanted them, you know. I had wanted kids. I really did. We had even talked about it. That's why I'm here today. What? Well, he began, speaking clearly. I can't handle caregiving or anything like that. So, let's get divorced. That was what John told me 3 years ago. Now, I've returned to my maiden name, Johnson, living alone in an apartment, and I've started working on my manga again. I was working on a draft for my series that day, when suddenly my phone rang. It was John. I ignored it. After about 20 rings, the call ended. But 10 minutes later, it started ringing again. I didn't want to hear his voice anymore, so I set my phone to send him straight to voicemail with a message asking him to leave a message. Then he said, "Please, pick up the phone. I'm in deep trouble right now and I need your help. You're making good money these days, aren't you? We used to be close, remember? Please, I'm begging you." Actually, my wife. At that point, I could feel the anger that I had felt back then beginning to burn inside me again. I reached out to someone through the messaging tool on my tablet. "Oh, what's wrong, Sarah?" "Thank you for asking. Mr. Smith, I've been receiving strange calls from my ex-husband, John." "That sounds serious. I'll be right there." Mr. Smith is someone I know from the publishing company that published one of my books. John served me with divorce papers out of the blue, and feeling shocked and devoid of energy, I ended up signing them. "I'll give you your share of our assets, so use that to pay the hospital bills," he said. By that point, our shared assets had been significantly reduced due to hospital and surgery costs. In other words, even after paying all that, John just wanted to get rid of me. Honestly, at that time, I didn't even care about going through a second surgery anymore. But when I posted on social media that I was scared about the surgery, I got a lot more responses than I had expected. "Please don't talk like that. Please hang in there and go through with the surgery. We'll wait forever for you to resume your series." Those words made me so happy that I drew a short comic about my situation and posted it. And then, I got more responses. Maybe if I keep writing about my current situation, everyone will be happy. That's what I thought. Since then, I've been drawing comics about my health condition, upcoming treatments, and my feelings as much as possible every day. Initially, I just added explanations to single drawings and posted them in series. Gradually, not only did the responses increase, but I also started to enjoy the drawing itself. I began to create comics in a 4-panel format, turning myself and my doctor into characters and depicting my situation in a comical way. I continued to do this before and after the surgery. And it went viral. Even when I was still in pain after the surgery, when I asked for my tablet or smartphone, my mother would give it to me, albeit with a resigned look on her face. She knew that it would make me smile. This viral moment on social media led to a book deal from a publishing house. Mr. Smith was the person in charge at that time. "The drawings are pretty rough, is that really okay?" I was worried about that. The series I had been working on was a solo project, but I had always made sure to produce high-quality work. However, the things I posted on social media were more like rough sketches. "That's what's so good about it." "Really?" "Yes. It's proof that you were in a state where you could only draw rough sketches, but then you found hope and gradually started to pull yourself together." "I see," I thought. In the end, The Diary of My Illness, published as a book, became an unusual hit, being the first popular comic on social media in my career. The second surgery went well, and The Record of My Recovery was published as a sequel. Given the content, I started receiving a lot of media interviews, and suddenly I, the artist, became famous. And now, I live alone in this apartment, bought with the royalties from those books. The book even sold well in its paperback edition, and thanks to that, I have no financial worries in my current life. I'm busy enough dealing with tax reduction strategies. However, this is quite a terrible situation. Mr. Smith commented as he arrived, and we went through the content of the relentless calls from John. I knew he had remarried a much younger woman, but I didn't know it was this bad. After the divorce, I heard from my in-laws that John had remarried a woman 20 years his junior. Her name is Natalie, and from what I gathered, she had been dating John even before our divorce. Initially, she was a hostess and a customer relationship with John, who met her through work, turned serious. Natalie, for her part, thought that if she could snag John, who was doing well financially at the time, it didn't matter that he was somewhat older, she could take the wife's seat from me. That's why he started coming home less and less. It's a good thing we broke up, really. But then John's liver gave out, and he needed a transplant. That's where I came in. After a liver transplant, it becomes difficult for a woman to get pregnant. I had already given up on having children, making me the perfect candidate. Maybe he wanted to have children with Natalie. So, he delayed bringing up divorce until the right moment. Then he took advantage of my vulnerable state to make me sign the divorce papers. At that time, I hadn't realized that John was having an affair. So he was able to settle everything just with the division of assets. But he just confessed by himself, Mr. Smith said, laughing heartily. Seems like he forgot that you can still demand alimony for infidelity even after you've found out about it. Didn't you? If he had known, I don't think he would be coming to me for money, I replied. Speaking of which, this request for money was indeed a turning point for me, turning misfortune into success. Natalie saw me on TV, got really fired up, and said, what the hell, his ex-wife is. It seemed like at first, she was thrilled about snatching away a cool husband from a nerdy and introverted woman. But before she knew it, she realized that I, the person she looked down upon, was on TV, basking in the limelight. She apparently couldn't stand it. That's when she started dabbling in forex trading. Got a taste of beginner's luck, and ended up getting completely hooked. By the time she realized it, she had accumulated a significant amount of debt and was covering it up with loans from payday lenders, all behind John's back. Things had gotten out of control. So, I'm begging you. You've got quite a lot of money now, right? Come on, for old time's sake, can you help me out? He pleaded. I burst into laughter. Are you out of your mind? Asking for money from me, whom you spared paying alimony to, with what face are you even asking that? I laughed loudly. Mr. Smith. Yes? I don't mind, actually, please use my name. Better yet, please write about it extensively. After that conversation, the torrent of angry calls from John ceased for a while. I was back to my quiet days of writing at home. Then one morning, while having breakfast, my old smartphone rang. Of course, I didn't pick it up. This phone had already served its purpose for daily use. Ever since John started his attacks, I had switched my main phone. Work communications and other necessary contacts were manageable via emails on my tablet and other means. From the voicemail of the now unused smartphone, John's voice echoed, Sarah, it was you, wasn't it? I just smirked and turned on the TV, catching the morning talk show just in time. They were featuring a scoop from a weekly magazine that hit the stands today, and it included this piece. It read, popular commentator John Thompson actually abandoned his wife, a donor for a living body transplant, to marry his mistress. That's how the story began. And of course, it was clearly stated that I was John's ex-wife. Oh my, who would have thought that the artist behind that sensational comic was his wife? I was really moved by that comic. And to think she was treated so terribly. The guests on the show were all chiming in with their 2 cents. Meanwhile, John's voicemail kept screaming. It's all your fault! I've been disowned by my own family because of you. Well, that was expected. I had asked Mr. Smith, the magazine's editor-in-chief who is now in that position, to make this story big enough even for John's parents, who usually don't read such magazines, to understand by featuring it on the morning talk show. Initially, Mr. Smith wanted to keep John out of the narrative in his works. He asked me if that was okay. And of course, I told him, absolutely not. Please expose everything as much as possible. I have no intention of seeing that man again, and if possible, I'd like to crush him in a big way. And so he did, resulting in the article that came out today. Because of you, my father told me that I won't be able to receive the inheritance that was supposed to come my way one day. I don't know anything about it. I answer to the voice on the answering machine. Yes, I really don't know anything about it. After all, I only spoke the truth. The fact that my ex-husband had to be hospitalized and undergo surgery was not something I thought necessary to mention at the time. It wasn't particularly relevant to my comic. But now, things are different. I've been dropped from the shows I had contracts with, and the plan for the book I was going to release has been scrapped. The number of subscribers to my channel is plummeting. What are you going to do about it? That's why I'm telling you, I don't know anything about it. I'll sue you. Who are you kidding? I have more grounds to sue you for our divorce reasons. And with that, I burst into laughter again, all by myself. Later on, John was disowned by his wealthy family. On top of that, he had to somehow repay the alimony and debts I demanded after our separation. It seems his new wife Natalie thought that with John's savings, they would manage somehow, even with some losses. But the truth was, John's work had always been like running in place. He wrote books and appeared on TV, earning a decent income. But on the other hand, the expenses for research trips for his books and production costs for his video channel were not negligible. In other words, his savings were in a constant cycle of increase and decrease. At the time of our divorce, his popularity surged as he made a comeback as a commentator after recovering from his illness. His viewership and subscriber numbers increased, and even after deducting medical expenses, he was making a good profit. But popularity is fickle, and the entertainment world is harsh. His reputation fell. As he left his overcoming illness narrative for another woman, especially when his new wife Natalie made foolish mistakes despite having an intellectual husband, he lost a significant portion of his female fan base. Nevertheless, he still had to pay off his debts. John ended up selling his condominium to repay them. Afterward, the two of them moved to a cheaper apartment, but their days were filled with endless arguments. It's your fault for not managing the house properly. That's why we couldn't sell it for a higher price. You were the one who said I could do whatever I wanted, were the kinds of conversations they had. And then, his work opportunities drastically decreased. Realizing he needed to do something big to turn things around, John made a major decision. With just a simple set of equipment for video streaming, he set off for conflict zones around the world. He aimed to make a comeback with live broadcasts from the field. I was genuinely surprised when I heard about it from the lawyer who was in touch with John regarding the alimony. On the other hand, Natalie tried desperately to stop John's reckless action, but eventually, she gave up and returned to the nightlife. It seems that the debts Natalie had made could not be repaid just by selling John's condominium. Even the lawyer lost track of their whereabouts after that. As for me, since John's actions were exposed in a magazine, my name became well known again, resulting in the decision to reprint my comic books. It seems that the perception of the same book can change depending on the situation. Thanks to that, I've received a bit of unexpected income on my end. However, it hasn't really changed my own lifestyle much. I'm not completely healed physically, so I'm taking things at a slow pace, working on my comics while keeping my interactions with the media to a minimum. My ex-in-laws still show me affection, almost as a replacement for their estranged son. Even though my mother and I sometimes argue when she visits, we generally get along well. Now, my mother occasionally goes on trips with my father and ex-in-laws, just the four of them. Mr. Smith is a bit of a different story. Since he went out of his way to help me with this whole ordeal, we've started to occasionally meet for tea or meals. Since I'm not in the best of health, we avoid drinking. My parents and ex-in-laws have asked if there's any chance of us getting married, but to be honest, I've had enough of marriage. Mr. Smith isn't interested in marriage either, so being just friends, with a bit of distance between us, feels comfortable. When I told this to the four of them, they seemed to have mixed feelings of disappointment and relief. From now on, I just want to live my life at my own pace, without being swayed by anyone else. Nice and easy, at my own pace.